Welcome to She Coaches Coaches. I'm your host, Candy Motzek, and I'm going to help you find the clarity, confidence, and courage to become the coach that you are meant to be. If you're a new coach, or if you've always wanted to be a life coach, then this is the place for you. We're going to talk all about mindset and strategies and how to, because step by step only works when you have the clarity, courage, and confidence to take action. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. If you are looking at this on YouTube, you're going to see me giggling just a little bit because this is the only other person that I have ever interviewed who shares the same first name as I do. And not only does she have the same first name, she has the same initials. And so I was making a note earlier and I referred to you, Candy Messer, as me, Candy Motzek. And so I was just remembering how weird that is when to talk to somebody with the same name when we have such unusual names. So let me just start by introducing Candy to you. And she is a return guest on our show. And we had a wonderful conversation. You can always go and check out that first interview, which was episode 118. But this time we're going to be taking things in a little bit of a different vein because it's been a while and she's evolved and so have I, and so have you, the listeners. So let me introduce Candy to you. Candy Messer is a profitability advisor and Clockwork Fractional COO, working with entrepreneurs to help them have successful businesses. Her company energizes entrepreneurs by removing the burden of compliance tasks, as well as identifying issues, preventing higher profitability. She also teaches business owners how to take a 4-week vacation. I'll just drop the mic there and have the company run effectively without them. As a result of using her services, clients have peace of mind and the freedom to do what they love. Candy is the host of the Biz Help for You podcast, which can be found on YouTube as well as multiple podcast channels. When not running her company, Candy enjoys reading, crocheting, baking sourdough bread, and spending time with friends and family. Candy, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be back. And yes, I'm glad to be talking to another Candy as well.
Well, when I get ready for an episode, I start a folder on my computer and I typed in episode XXX Candy Motzek. And I'm like, okay, that's not right. I'm not interviewing myself. So it just made me laugh when I think about it. So you have a really interesting business, and we had a little bit of a conversation beforehand. And I like this combination that you're doing where you have a bookkeeping business with a number of employees and help your clients just deal with all the compliance stuff. And at the same time, you have this Clockwork Fractional COO. So we've got the two currencies of money and time. Can you tell me how you got into Clockwork Fractional COO and what attracted you to that?
Yeah, so just like any typical entrepreneur, I was working a lot, especially, the industry I'm in, there are a lot of deadlines. January is always crazy for us too, because every document is due to the government. And then the first quarter of the year, a lot of people come because they need their bookkeeping done because they put it off. We do all of that work. So it's just typical to work a lot anyway. And I'm in that place in life now where I have older parents and, I've got my mother-in-law who lives alone also, and I have grandchildren too. And so sometimes my daughter calls and wants help with things. So I feel like if I'm tied to my business, I can't step away if something happens. So if there's an emergency, my business was dependent upon me in a lot of cases to be able to have it run. And so I follow Mike Michalowicz. I've read his books. I had read Profit First. I was on his email list, and he had sent out an email that he was going to update his Clockwork book, and he had about 60% new content. He wanted people to read it ahead of time, give feedback, leave reviews and everything to help get, the word out for that book. And so I said, sure, I'll read it. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, I really need this because it teaches you operational efficiency so that you can step away for a 4-week vacation. And he says it doesn't have to be a vacation if you don't want it to be. It could just be you stay at home, but you completely unplug. And so many of us would take time away, supposedly, right? But we still check emails, we take phone calls, staff reaches out. Like you're just really doing your work in another place. So as I was reading this, I knew, okay, I need to start implementing this in my own business. And then soon after, when the book came out, and of course, I'm on that email list now for Clockwork, there was an email about the accelerator program where you could have additional training, and they had, online modules and all of that. So I was like, okay, I want that, right? Because as I read the book, I was thinking, well, how do you implement all of these things? Like he gives you the information, but you don't necessarily know how to do it. So I went through the accelerator program. And as I was going through that, I was like thinking to myself, so many people need this information. And then they opened up where you could become certified in the program and teach it to others. And because as I was going through it, I knew others needed to know how to do it. I was like, I need to sign up for this program so I could teach others as well. And so that's what I did. And here we are.
Wow. It sounds like you went through, as you got the email, you went through the first door and said, oh, this applies to me. And then there was another door and you opened that door and another and another. And here you are. Now, have you actually been able to take a 4-week vacation away from your business? Like I have to ask, right?
I did actually. And it takes time. So if people read this book and they read it and like, oh, great, I want that 4-week vacation, you're not going to be getting that right away, right? Because there are a lot of things you have to put in place. So what I did was I took a week away and then I came back and what do we need to do to make those adjustments? And then 2, and then 3, and then 4. So I built up to it, and it took me about a year for me to go through this process and find the right times also in my calendar, right, to make it work. So again, I didn't want to leave during like a really crazy season, So one of the weeks I was thinking like, oh, if I do it every 3 months, this would be great. Well, the first week I took was in September, like mid-September. So the next one, if I did 3 months, would be like the last 2 weeks of December. I was like, well, that's not ideal, right? It's the holiday season. We're prepping for our crazy January season. And then, of course, I'm not going to be gone in January. So I waited till February to take the 2 weeks, but I did. And I did completely disengage. The team chat that we have, they set up a whole different chat that I'm not even in so that I didn't even know what messages were happening. And so only the operations manager would reach out if there were an emergency, but she never reached out, right? And so again, you start with one, find out maybe what didn't work, what changes do you need to make, what permissions do you need to give, and then, work through that program. But I did take from mid-September to mid-October this year for that 4-week vacation. I didn't go anywhere per se. Like it wasn't like a 4-week vacation per se. Yeah. I should say that what I did was I said, there are things I want to do in my business I haven't had the chance to do yet. So I focused on those kinds of things. And then the very last week was actually something they called Camp Clockwork, where a lot of us who were going through the program, either becoming certified or just learning how to implement it, they actually had a summer camp location that we all went to in Nashville. It was so much fun because they were saying a lot of times we don't have fun in business either. We're just working, right? And they wanted you to come learn some more of the things that they were going to teach. Mike Michalowicz was there for one day, teaching a few more things as well. But then you also had social time and fun and all of that. So I was able to do that too.
That sounds amazing. Now, I as you're talking, I'm doing the math, right? And so the math says that in less than a year, actually in about 10 months, you took 1 week plus 2 weeks, plus 3 weeks is 6, plus 4 weeks. So that's a total of 10 weeks. I know that it wasn't 100% disengaged from your business. Right. I know that, it wasn't perfect, but yet you stepped away for 10 weeks worth of time, even if it was that you switched to a different priority that you had been wanting to get to. So honestly, that is an amazing accomplishment to be able to do that. And so it shows me that it's possible
Mm-hmm.
for entrepreneurs to do this.
Mm-hmm.
How has
And
it
that's the
changed you?
passion.
How has it
Mm-hmm.
changed you as an individual to be able to take back this ownership of your time?
For one, I feel it also is important for my own company, right? So, not just for me, right? That, oh, I can get some time back, but it's important for my company, my staff, all of those things too, because they're dependent on my company running too. What if something were to happen to me and the company can't run without me? They don't have their jobs, right? And so this is giving them the opportunity to have things continue without me being there. But it also will give me the opportunity if something comes up and I need to step away, it's going to allow me to, God forbid, when the time comes, I have to do things, for my parents or my mother-in-law or things like that too, when that happens. Or every once in a while, my daughter might call and say, hey, I'm going to do this today. Are you able to join me?
Hmm.
And sometimes I still have to say no, depending on my calendar. Like if I'm recording podcasts or things too, there are some things that are still set in stone that you can't drop like immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But if it were a true emergency, I could, right? I could reschedule something. But for me, number one, it's just giving me more freedom than what I had before, feeling tied down to the business. But it's giving me a new passion for things in my business too, because as I started learning this too and experiencing the change that can happen, like I want to help others get there too, because I have been where I'm burned out, overwhelmed, wondering like, should I continue in my business or should I just let it go and go work for someone else and work the 9 to 5, right? And I think as entrepreneurs, we have those ups and downs. And so by learning these techniques and applying them and figuring out, it's not going to be perfect along the way, but what are some of the things you need to do to make adjustments? Then I can share that wisdom with someone else who wants to learn. And I might not be there 100% yet. I don't just step away all the time and it just does everything without me completely yet. But as you mentioned, 10 weeks in the last year, I was able to do. So I have learned a lot and I can teach that to others. And then they can start making those implementations in their own companies and finding where they need to make alterations and switch. And if things come up, it's going to happen sometimes. Like people might have to quit and move away and you have bring new people in. And so you kind of start over in that area again, teaching them, right? But it is something that you can attain.
Yeah. There's so three words that kind of really jumped out at me, and I just want to share those before I ask the next question. And they were really unexpected. So, because of this different approach to productivity, the words that I heard were that it gave you peace, peace of
Mm-hmm.
mind,
Mm-hmm.
and passion. It gave you back
Mm-hmm.
passion. Those three words don't normally go together in a sentence, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for you to have that peace of mind that you're putting something in place that your team is taking care of, your clients are taking care of, the business is taking care of, that allows you to disengage. And then to have the passion of learning a new way, trying new things, freeing yourself up to do other things. Like that's an unusual combination, don't you think?
It is. And even before when I was starting to move in this direction with Clockwork too, and I said, I do bookkeeping and payroll and sales tax. And yes, we give peace of mind to our customers and we handle things that they don't want to do. And that's on like the financial side of things. And I was like, well, are people going to see how these two can marry? Right. Because
Mm.
it's different. But you even brought up like you've got the money and the time, right? And those are two very important things to business owners that they think about a lot, right? If not all the time. And so it is something that if they start learning even the operational efficiency and being able to take that time away, then oftentimes what happens is as you're streamlining processes to cut out things that you shouldn't be doing, to get you extricated, you can find that you might be more profitable even, which is going to affect the finance, right? Or you can start thinking about other things you could be doing in your business you didn't have time for. So maybe that is a new revenue stream, right? That's going to bring in more income. So they actually can go well together. Where at first I was thinking, well, people might think it's a little bit strange, like it was so logical over here and now there's this. But I think they pair well together.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So if there's somebody listening to this, and, so I've got coaches, business owners, solopreneurs who listen to this show, but also leaders, lots of
Mhm.
leaders. And so, keeping that in mind, what are the first steps that you would suggest for somebody who says, hey, how do I know where to start? How do I know
Mhm.
what to start with to like, how do I identify what to take off my plate so that I can start moving in this way? What do you suggest
Mhm.
to them?
I think the first thing to do is time tracking. And if anyone's ever worked with a coach or someone else too, they may have already heard this before too. Like you should know where your time is going. And a lot of times we think we know where it's going. And if you take the time to really document, I was doing customer, responses for emails I had. I was on a business call. I had a Zoom meeting with a prospect. If you start documenting what you're doing, how long it takes, then you might find some things there that you didn't realize. Oh, I forgot I do this task, or it takes this extra time, and then once you have tracked all of that, you can look at the different types of work you're doing. So in Clockwork, they actually have what they call the 4Ds about the types you're doing. So doing is one of them. You're doing the work. This is generally what is your revenue based types of transactions you have to be doing, or tasks. So it is, probably responding to emails or creating content, or things like that too, doing the actual work too for your business. Like, so for my business, my staff doing the bookkeeping and the payroll and all of that, that's like the doing. So if I'm doing that too, right, that's that type of category. The second category is deciding. So this is where you want to hand off tasks, but you haven't actually given them like the permission and everything to just kind of take over the task and just run with it. So you've basically said, I want this done, but they come back to you and they're asking you questions all the time, right? I'm not sure how to do this. Can I do this? And that's where business owners often start to feel, well, maybe I shouldn't even hand stuff off because it's taking me more time to do all of this because I could have done it faster, right? But then if you take the time to teach them, in the long run, you can assign that outcome to them, which is the actual delegation. So then at that point, you could say, here's the client project. I need it done by this date. And these are, kind of the expected outcomes. And then they run with it, right? And they might have one or two like questions, but not constantly coming back to you. And that's the delegating. And then design. That's where we as CEOs are supposed to be. And CEOs, a lot of times people who are sole proprietors might be listening and saying, well, I'm not a CEO. Well, you really are. It's your company, but we're supposed to be designing things for our company. That's the strategy. That's like the long-term thinking. And, what else can I be doing in my business? How can I serve my client better? And that's where we should be spending a lot more of our time than the doing. And that's where you have team that you can delegate these things to.
Right.
The other thing they say to look at, I will just quickly mention too, they also have what they call the 4Ts, which is you then look at what you're doing and decide, can I trash it? Is it something that no one should do? And you're just still doing it because it's a habit, or, it's something that you always did, but maybe it's something you don't need any longer. Then there is trim it. So it's something you still need to do, but you could do it in a more efficient way. Then transfer. So that's where you'll delegate to somebody else, or treasure because you just love doing it, or it's something that you really should be doing, like the design work. So you use that. That's the first step, is really time tracking and using this 4D and 4T model to really determine what you should be taking off your plate.
Okay. And so the 4Ds are doing, like noticing the things that you actually do,
Mm-hmm.
decide, should I do this or not? Delegate the things that I shouldn't be doing, and then design, which is more like the visionary, sort of creating that pathway, like the path forward, the mission, the goals and such for the quarter or the year or the decade. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the things within it, the actual things within the doing category, you've got the T's, like, do I want to slot these in? Which way do I want to slot these? One of the things that was really interesting when you said trash it is it reminded me of, I think it's called the sunken cost fallacy,
Mm.
where we think that because we've invested so much time and energy and often money into a
Mm.
certain thing, we're really hesitant to let it go. And
Mm-hmm.
do you find that there's that, like, it's really hard to let go of those things that maybe you should
Mm-hmm.
trash or you should trim? What do you notice with
Yeah,
that?
it could be. But what you can also look at is, well, let's trash it for a week, right? Or a month. Let's see what happens. Like, is there really an effect on the business or not? So let's say, for instance, you're posting to 4 different social media platforms, and maybe you're deciding that I'm going to get rid of one of these because it just takes extra time. I don't think I'm getting a lot of engagement, but you're not sure, right? Or you're afraid, oh, well, I'm going to lose my followers. Well, what happens like if you don't post anything at all?
Mm-hmm.
Was there any impact on your business? And then you can go look at before, when I was posting, what type of interaction was I getting? Did I get business from it? Did my business grow in any way from it? And if not, then maybe you don't need to continue it at all any longer. If you look at it and you're saying to yourself, well, it did have an impact, then that's when you can think about, is it something I could do more quickly? Maybe right now you're still taking the time to just log in and post something periodically. And maybe you can use one of the planners that will help you schedule posts. So you could just batch it, schedule them all at once, right? And then trim that time. Or maybe you completely transfer it to someone else. So that's the
Yeah.
kind of thing that you start to do and really analyze your time. Because if you can get rid of these things off your plate by, again, trashing it, trimming it, transferring it to someone else, now you've freed up time in your schedule to either take that time completely away, or maybe take that time to do more effective things that are going to, push your business forward. Again, whether it's planning a new revenue stream, doing some other things that are just really going to enhance your business, or maybe it's that downtime.
Right. There's when you talked about the trial, it makes me think that it's almost a fifth T in a way. Like if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure if I can trash it or trim it, I can do a trial and then I can
Mm-hmm.
and then I can decide. So that's super interesting. And one of the things that it always makes me think of is that there's a lot of things that happen in our business, in our careers, in our life, and we get used to doing them.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, are we the right people to be doing them? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's a real decision point there for a lot of the things that you've spoken about. Maybe you're really good at doing whatever the task is, but it's not really your highest and best use of time. It's not using your, zone of genius. You're just kind of doing it, but you
Mm-hmm.
could pass it to somebody who is super talented and it is their zone of genius. So there's a place of, it's not just that you're keeping it or giving it, it's that you're allowing that other person to really live into what their top skill set is. Like there's some
Mm-hmm.
administrators that are amazing and that's their
Right.
top skill. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're so fulfilled there. So why would we hold that away from them and do it
Right.
ourselves when we're kind of so at it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
Yeah.
reminds me, and I might say this a little bit incorrectly. I may not say it exactly the way it was, but Mike Michalowicz in his book Clockwork was saying that your job as the business owner is not to do the work, it's to hire people who can do the work, right? Because you're employing people, you're making a difference in other people's lives. And I think a lot of times we think, especially if we start our own business from scratch, or, maybe you took over from a family member or something too, but you're doing all of the things, you're wearing all of the hats. And you feel either number one, if you were to hand that off, now you're not as valuable even to your own company. Or you think, well, someone's not going to be able to do it as good as I am doing it right now, right? And there's like all these things we have in our heads about why we can't really hand that off to someone, but that's really not true.
Yeah. So like if you do identify a task that you could hand off, you could delegate it to somebody. How do you make that start?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that start in really doing an effective delegation instead of this? I don't know. Sometimes it reminds me of like you kind of half hand the person the paper, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't let go of it. So you don't really allow them
Right.
to be successful, right? So, how do
Right.
you effectively delegate these tasks?
I think the first thing that you need to do too is get the information out of your head, the process, because a lot of people just have it where they've done it for such a long time. They just sit down and they just do it. And so there's no documentation for someone to follow. So if you don't want them to fail at it, and even if you do this, there might be some failures, right? No one's perfect. And it took time for them, it took time for you to learn. So it may take time for them to learn too. But number one, you just have to get the process written down, get all the steps, written down, or you can record a video of you doing it so they can also watch it too. So I think that's one of the first things to do is to actually have a process that can be followed. And then you have to actually give them the permission to do the work too, right? And that permission may be just giving them the authority to make a decision. It might be that depending on what it is, they need to have a role set up in software. So if it's something like maybe you want them to help manage team, then they need to have the permissions to, add new team, adjust certain things. If it's software, they have to have a login for, you have to think through what is it that they need to be successful, to do this and make sure that you've given them that permission. And then you can have them come back to you again if they're not 100% sure how to do something and clarify, with you and start off with something that is not high risk, right? So if it's something that is going to majorly impact financials or like a customer relationship, that's probably not where to start. But identify something that you are doing that isn't going to be like a make or break thing. So if they make a mistake, then they can go back and learn again what they should have done. And again, we learn from mistakes too. We don't always want to admit it, but even, we have had our failures, right? And so we have to be okay with them making those mistakes and learning from it and giving them the authority to actually take it and not come back. Because once again, that deciding mode we talked about before is when you say, well, I want you to do this, but they keep coming back and asking questions, and it could be because they don't know how to do it or they're not sure they have permission, or the authority to do it. So actually just saying, here's the task, here's the outcome I expect, and then let them try it.
Yes. And remember that sometimes those people that you delegate to will actually come up with a better way of doing it, and to be open to going, oh my gosh, I never thought about doing it that way. Oh, that's so much better than what I was doing. And eat a little bit of humble pie and just be appreciative that you've got such an amazing team member. Right. Wow. We have covered a lot. So if anybody listening to this, I think the first thing is listen to the episode and go and buy this book and go back and listen to what Candy said. She gave you those very first steps, like what to do, time tracking, right? Like that's the place to start to see what you're actually doing. Start at like, what's our baseline? Where exactly are we at? So Candy, as we get close to wrapping up, what is there anything that you haven't said about this method and about your involvement with it and how you work with people that you just, there's a important piece that you would just like to talk about before I ask you to share your information?
I think someone might be thinking about like this 4-week vacation too and thinking I could never get out of my company, and it seems overwhelming at first, but you can start, you can just take a step at a time, and get your confidence and get your mindset where it needs to be too, right? That you can give that permission. And even if you're a sole proprietor working on your own and you don't have team, you don't have staff, that doesn't mean you can't start implementing this. And so it's not only for, big companies or somebody who has like 20 people on their team, you can start just yourself, figuring out what you need to be doing and who you need to have as part of your team, whether they're employees or it's, someone who's like an outside independent contractor or something. But it does feel overwhelming at first, but it is possible.
That's so helpful. Yeah. And I really like the message that it's for any business owner, any person, sole proprietor, or if you own a larger corporation, it can apply to you. You don't have to wait until you're a certain size until this process can be helpful for you. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. Can you tell the folks, how can they find out more about you? How can they come and get into your world? How do they find out more about this Clockwork system?
Sure. Well, you can check out my website, abandp.com. Now, again, a lot of it is on the finance side of things. I do have a page. I'm not sure if it's actually hidden, if it's just a landing page or you can find it. I'll have to check that on my website, but definitely find me on LinkedIn as well. You start a conversation with me. And if you're interested, I can always give resources, to you that can get you started on this journey. But I would love to just connect and be able to be a resource.
Oh, that would be great. And so I know that there's some links that you're going to give me, and I'll put those links in the episode notes. And then they don't have to be writing everything down while they're driving and listening to this
Right.
episode. They can just click right through and they can learn more about the things that you do and come closer into your community. Thank you, Candy. Gosh, I appreciate the time that you spent with us. And you have really got my brain thinking right now about what do I do and what should I be delegating. So let me just thank you on behalf of my listeners.
Well, I was glad to be here and have this conversation and get to catch up with you too. It's been so much
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, it was great to talk with you. Okay, thanks again. So, everyone, this has been a really meaty episode. There's lots here for you to listen to. My guess is you're going to probably favorite it and go back and listen to it once or twice. More than anything, I would say listen, but then take action. Candy has shared so much good, valuable information with us. You can take action straight away from here and start making a difference in your business. Thanks again for joining me, and I will be back and speak to you again next week. Hey, it's Candy, and I am so glad you're here. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to this episode. Now, before you go, don't forget to take my How to Find Your Best Coaching Niche quiz. You can find it at coachnichequiz.com. That's coachnichequiz.com. Talk to you soon. Thanks again for listening today. Please hop on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Also, I would love to hear from you. Did something that I say resonate? What else would you like to learn about? Click the link in the player and leave a comment on the post. This is going to give me great ideas for future episodes so I can help you best. Join me again next week for more coaching, support, and teaching to help you become the confident coach you are meant to be.